Hello, and welcome back to the All Out Soccer podcast. Myself, Jeremy Goldstein, my co-host, Joseph McBride, we're two football fans talking about soccer. We focus on a fusion of the MLS, the U.S. men's and women's soccer teams, the build-up to the 2026 World Cup. This week, it's all about the end of the MLS season. But, Joe, how are we doing this week?
I'm very well, thank you. It was another chaotic weekend, as always, as we approach the playoffs. How are you?
I'm good. Enjoyed some of the games. I thought they were exciting. Going to get into few of them now, just in our little intro roundup. And then we're going to get into some Miami bit, some LAFC bit, some MVP conversation. I think we know who the big two are at this point. We're going to talk about U.S. players abroad. And we're going to talk about all the frenzy around the World Cup ticket buying process. Okay, so what happened this weekend in the MLS? Lionel lets a teammate take a penalty in a nervy win over DC United. But will that cost him in the Golden Boot race? And secondly, does he even care? Denis Bouanga dares to challenge Messi for that award, bagging a hat trick for LAFC. Brenner is back for Cincinnati. His brace keeps Cincy in the hunt for the Supporters' Shield. NYCFC beats Charlotte to cap off a 2-win week, ending Charlotte's 9-game winning streak. Are the New Yorkers contenders? Or are they pretenders? Another matchup of rivals saw Orlando pip Nashville 3-2. Vancouver stays hot. San Diego drops points again. And Austin keeps winning to keep the hunt for the spots at the bottom of the playoff chase humming. We're not going to get into playoff mania this week, though some teams are starting to clinch. That will be a next week thing. We're going to start in Florida with Miami. That was a weird game. Christian Benteke looks pretty darn good for someone his age. So does Lionel Messi. What were your takeaways from this one, Joe?
It's never a dull game with Miami, as we've grown to learn over these last few years. They played really well, I thought. They dominated the game, even though it was a nervy one. Obviously, they got the same defensive problems that they've had kind of all season and the same disciplinary problems with 6 yellow cards in this game. But a 3-2 win. And of course, Lionel Messi was at the center of everything. He was the one that set up the opening goal, Thiago Allende. Amazing ball over the top from Messi. In behind, about a 40-yard pass, and he was straight through on goal, 1-0. That's how the first half ended. Christian Benteke then equalises just after half-time with a back post header. Lionel Messi then took initiative into his own hands. Great turn in the box and finish. At that point, they were awarded a penalty, and it was a case of, Messi, is he going to make amends for his Penenka chip that failed? He didn't even take it. He handed it off to Matteo Silvetti, who blasted it against the crossbar. Another miss, another penalty calamity for Miami. But thankfully for them, it didn't come to haunt them as Messi scored a beautiful goal to make it 3-1 outside of the box. Complete trademark from him, top left corner, of the goal. DC did pull one back. Jacob Morel right at the end, 97th minute on a breakaway. Late consolation. It made it a little bit nervy, but they got the win, especially after the misery at Charlotte. It was an important win. They're up to 5th in the East, 8 points off leaders Philadelphia with 3 games in hand. So if they win those games in hand, they can still go top of the conference. But yeah, definitely a weird one with Messi handing off that penalty. You were saying, does he care? Is it a confidence thing? With him? Never. So for him to offer that to someone else at that point in the game, it was kind of an interesting one, but they missed. So it's the same issues again, but they wanted to win the game, so it doesn't matter for them. What was your take on him handing the penalty off?
Well, he did win the penalty, which is fair. And I am of the staunch belief that the penalty taker in any league, any level, should be the player who wins the penalty, have to take the penalty. Obviously, that's not the society we live in, but in an ideal world, that's what it is, because I think that's just more fair. It creates just a little less of an advantage than just giving it to Messi because he's on your team and you want a penalty. Anyway, it does help that Silvestri is a teenager from Newell's Old Boys. So obviously Messi, naturally will have strong affinity towards him. And then Messi scored after the missed penalty, like clearly, seizing the bull by the horns. I thought he looked incredibly aggressive in this game. His passing from deep was outstanding. He kind of really controlled the tempo in a way. You see him do this, obviously, in the MLS from time to time, but it was really, I thought, one of his just best overall performances in any contest I've seen this season. Passing it off, it's fine. Like, he's giving it to a young Argentine player. It's just like, It makes sense. This is what brings him joy at this point in his career. All I'm going to say is Cristiano Ronaldo would not be passing that penalty off to a young Portuguese player who won it in a similar situation. I'll tell you that much. Messi values different things. No one fully knows what he even cares about. He's just such an interesting, mysterious little man. But this checks all the boxes of what he wants. It's a young Argentine player who he's letting take a critical penalty. And it didn't cost him the game. Now, I honestly think there's one lens you could say it's a little selfish because for his team to have the best chance of winning, Messi needs to take these penalties. But I have no issue with it. In terms of the Golden Boot race, does Messi even know he's in the race? Like, is this something he's aware of? He won MVP last year. He has his individual award. Is this Golden Boot race even really, pushing him? Does it mean anything to him? I don't know.
Well, it's a bit of a flex from him. I think, he might be looking at the Golden Boot race. I don't think at this point in his career, as you said, it's something he's really going to care about compared to all the other accolades he's had. Multi-time Ballon d'Or winner, etc., as we know, even one in Miami. But yeah, it was an interesting one, but it didn't come back to haunt him. And he's probably, he's so confident anyway, even if he does care that he's going to win that Golden Boot race. They've got so many games in hand. And it's also exciting. I think we've been so worried about his fitness. Start of the season, he was missing games. Obviously, he's had injuries later on in his career. But strangely, as we come into the twilight of the regular season and going into the playoffs, he looks fitter and better than he has all year. So, that's obviously going to be a strength for Miami. They're going to get Suarez back soon, who's had some rest from his spitting incident. So, it's a good time for them. But even more importantly, away from the field, his contract was due to expire at the end of this season. Very close, apparently, now to agreeing an extension. That's massive for Miami in several reasons. They want him to still be there after the World Cup and to profit and continue momentum after the World Cup in America, obviously, in US and Mexico. But also they're going to be at their new stadium, Miami Freedom Park. Beautiful, beautiful venue. They want him to be the face of that, to lead the inaugural season there. So really exciting stuff. And Mascherano even went a step further in his post-game comments and said as much as it's important for Miami and important for MLS, he just thinks the longer Messi stays in America is just going to benefit US soccer entirely, which is a big statement, but he's not really wrong.
No, he's not wrong. I think it'll be really important that post-World Cup to capitalize on that hype train because the MLS season will resume for that fall. Something I find really interesting about this Golden Boot race is if, just as Messi did in 2022 when he won the World Cup and then had a strong start to the season upon arriving in 2023, obviously with his league, typified by the League Cup win, if Messi wins the Golden Boot this year and wins MVP, and then wins the World Cup next summer, the Ballon d'Or vote is in early September when the MLS season will still be going on. So any award you looked at for like how well did Messi do in the last 12 months will have to take into account the 2025 season this year. So if he wins MVP, if he wins the Golden Boot, that will kind of factor into next year's Ballon d'Or calculus. Messi didn't have a chance to win the Ballon d'Or because there was no international competition, and that's kind of the only way for him to get it. But next year, not only will he need to win the World Cup, which he could do, he needs that just a little extra boost in the personal accolade department. And I don't know if Ballon d'Or voters who are very, very fickle, very, very fickle. Mo Salah finished fourth, by the way, travesty. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much they'll value, like if they'll value team winning or individual awards, but it will certainly help. So you could say that decision to pass off a penalty genuinely has Ballon d'Or implications.
I think, potentially, yeah. I think anyone who wins the World Cup, we obviously saw it when he won the World Cup in 2022. Most often than not, the Ballon d'Or is going to be, one of the best players from that nation. I remember Julian Alvarez was way up in the rankings for that year. Happened with Rodri after Spain won the Euros. Obviously, Messi did win Copa America with Argentina, but that competition isn't placed in as high regard as some of the other continental competitions, rightly or wrongly. But yeah, if Miami go on a tear now, and especially if he wins that World Cup, it's just going to add to it. And it would be amazing to see him win it at that age. If he could do that, that would be incredible.
He has a chance. The Argentine squad is certainly looking dangerous. We're going to go from one contender in the Golden Boot race, Lionel Messi, to another MVP contender, Denis Bouanga. Another week, Another hat trick for an LAFC player. This time, it's the man from Gabon. They found themselves 1-0 down to Real Salt Lake at a first half banger, but that would quickly be erased by everyone's favorite combination in the MLS at the moment. The first goal game, Denis Bouanga slips it into Heung-min Son, who slips it back to Denis Bouanga via the help of a tiny deflection to the levels proceedings at 1-1. This is right before halftime. Then Heung-min Son, also in injury time before halftime, curls one in from the outside the box with his left foot, proving that he's the best two-footed player not named USMNT Debate in the world. Heung-min Son, the third goal starts from him in hold-up, slips it back into midfield. Midfield slips it back up to Denis Bouanga, streaking through. He chips it over Cabral, and then has his customary flip to make things 3-1. And of course, he'll finish off the game, gets a ball through from Jeremy Bobasi, splits the defense, and scores to complete his hat trick. And these goals made him the first player to score 20-plus in 3 consecutive MLS seasons. Not much you could say about him that hasn't already been said. Had some of his, signature transitional elements in this one, but this was really just, I thought, a well-rounded performance overall from Bouanga. He really just seems to I feel like this tremendous sense of joy from scoring goals, not in a sort of selfish way. He's just like so satisfied with himself. He's obviously been one of the best players in the league now for a few years, but this feels different. This feels like he is the best player in the league, not named Lionel Messi, and obviously we'll get into a little MVP debate after this. He's taken his game to another level since Heung-min Son has come over. He's the top goal scorer in the MLS since then. Was it a motivation issue? Who knows? Obviously, him and LAFC got off to a slow start this year. You can blame Olivier Giroud a little bit for that. You can do whatever you want. You can say whatever you want, but Bouanga has just been irresistible in recent weeks.
Yeah, and Son we said about Messi being unselfish earlier and passing that penalty off. If that was his choice, we assume it is. Son is the most selfless player I think I've watched in the last 10 years. Just so beneficial to the team. He brings the level up of everyone around him. And if you already have one of the best players in MLS, if not the best player, that's not Lionel Messi, and you put a Heung-min Son next to him just to blow open that creativity, it's only going to lead to good results. And 10 goals he's scored now since Son joined, which is just incredible. A very, very late charge for the MVP race, as we were saying. And I'm sure we'll get onto that soon.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the thing about LAFC is the overall talent pool of this roster is good, but not great. I would say the addition of Delgado, I think, has been the absolute right one this offseason. Timothy Tillman has been great in recent weeks. They brought over Ryan Porteous, the Scottish international defender from Watford, over the summer. He's gone right into the team. Hugo Lloris has had a very strong campaign. It's an interesting team. I think if anything happened to either of the big two up front, I think we would rule out their chances. But as of now, are they... I don't want to say the team to beat because they haven't quite proven that over the whole season. But are they, if you know what I mean by this, the most dangerous team in the MLS?
I think they can catch any team off guard and, on their day beat anyone. Having a goalkeeper like Hugo Lloris is huge. I mean, he may not be as good as he was. Obviously, he's aging now, but a world-class goalkeeper, one of the best for Spurs during that 10 years Premier League era, World Cup winner. Having just that confidence behind you as a defender is massive. And, not going to call out individual goalkeepers in MLS, but just someone of that caliber is hard to come by. So, and Porteous, very experienced national team player for Scotland as well. Likes a goal from corners too. He's got that aerial threat. They've just got players, we said about this Vancouver, obviously it's a bit different with the two superstar strikers, but they wouldn't exactly have, the best individual players dotted around, but as a team and as a unit and how they work and how they transition, really, really strong. And I think they really can beat anyone. And they've had recent success, obviously, in MLS as well. So there's that pedigree to work off.
I completely agree. Joe, we're going to get into a little MVP conversation just to kick off to round out our MLS conversation for the week. I think it's between two players. It's Lionel Messi and Denis Bouanga. Just to paint the picture, they're both level on 22 goals. Messi has beat 10 assists to 6. Obviously, that is the differentiator in any conversation about Golden Boot. Messi has also played about 500 less minutes. Denis Bouanga has also taken 7 penalty kicks to Messi's 0. Well, he's attempted 1. He's missed his only 1. Luis Suarez has been on penalty duty. Obviously, as you mentioned, it's gone to a host of players in that team. From an advanced stats point of view, this isn't a value statement. I'm just reading off a number. Non-penalty expected goals plus expected assists per 90 minutes. Lionel Messi, 1.15. Denis Bouanga, 0.77. Then obviously players after that, Sam Surridge, 0.71. Alonso Martinez, 0.65. Other players in the mix, Daniel Musovski, who's had a really underrated season for Seattle, 0.87. Anders Dreyer, great breakthrough player for San Diego FC, 0.77. He has 15 goals and 16 assists. Joe, obviously, from a statistical point of view, unfortunately, it is Messi. If you look at other stats like dribble numbers, shot, and other stuff, Bouanga then becomes a little more of a contender. But what is your pulse as of right now?
I think just for the amount of time he's missed and the fact that he's scored 22 from open play, it kind of has to be Messi, and he is the MVP. Really, we talk about him every week. He's always doing something. He's lighting up the league. He's producing great attacking returns. I can't imagine where Miami would be without him. He's obviously a fantastic player, but they've put all these pieces around him. But without him being there, I just feel like that whole team would collapse. I'm kind of torn because I think Anders Dreyer. I mean, last week we spoke about Evander a lot, but I think we slept on Anders Dreyer a little bit. He's been so consistent, as you said, 15 goals, 16 assists. San Diego at top of the Western Conference. They've had Irving Lozano, which has been exciting, but for me, he's been the standout player all season, and it's been consistent. I think Bouanga is incredible. His numbers, obviously, he's tied for Golden Boot race at the moment, and he definitely deserves a mention. But I think he's had quite a late run at it, and I wouldn't say longevity over the season. He's been that guy. But then again, my argument for Messi is, he also has played less minutes, so it completely counters my argument. But for me, I think it would be definitely between them three. I'd say Bouanga's now definitely second place now, but I'd say it's still between Dreyer and Messi for me. But yeah, 22 goals from open play, only playing in 22 games as well, as opposed to the others that are nearing 30 games in MLS. I just think it has to be him. It probably will be him inevitably, regardless of what anyone else does now.
Yeah, Messi has 32 goal involvements in 20 starts. I mean, that's pretty good. Exactly. That's pretty good. And obviously, look, he benefits from playing with some other all-world playmakers around him. Let's not discount that. Bouanga has been playing with Son the last few weeks, and that's caused a spike in his stats. And is that more emblematic of Heung-min Son's impact? I would wonder if Son had arrived about 4 or 5 months earlier, if this MVP conversation would center around him or if it would center around Bouanga. But I think Bouanga, in my opinion, is going to take home the Best of the Rest award. He kept this team afloat for months and months and months, needed that secondary playmaker, and that playmaker finally arrived. But he is not Lionel Messi, who I want to note leads the league both in shot-creating actions per 90 and goal-creating actions per 90. If you can guess who is second in goal-creating actions per 90, I will edit every single video for the rest of the season.
Second it's obviously something obscure then. So is in goals and assists, or just creating chances?
Goal-creating actions per 90. So either passes or whatever it is that ends up resulting in a goal. Like it could be passing, dribble, whatever it meant.
Yeah, wow, loaded question that.
He's a Canadian in Canada.
I was going to say, is it Jaden Nelson?
It's not Jaden Nelson. It's a teammate of his.
Who was it? I can't even think.
Ali Ahmed, player. I very proudly say, he looks like he's flashing in every game, and he is. Vancouver, great season. Thomas Muller, another one I think would have been a contender for full season. Brian White as well. He's obviously missed some time. But team of the season wise, what a great team performance for Vancouver this year. Joe, any other deep sleepers you want to mention in the MVP race?
Evander, when we spoke on last week, 17 goals, 12 assists. Sam Surridge, as much as he's done the goal scoring, only 3 assists, but 21 goals is great for him. Unfortunately, not that we want to characterize him. We said last week, I don't think he's an MVP caliber style player this year. but he definitely deserves a mention. I think it's been a great year, and not to get too ahead of ourselves, but if we could be in a world next year where we've got Messi, Heung-min Son, and Thomas Muller competing for an MVP award, that's just going to be incredible.
Yeah, that would be really, really exciting. I think next year Ricky Puig might have something to say about it if he comes back. Obviously, we'll win. If he plays at all, it'll be a minor miracle. Just considering how long he was out for and the severity of this injury, it seems. But he'll have the narrative with him, considering how poorly the Galaxy have done this year without him. And if they're even a shred competitive with him in the lineup, I think that will speak volumes about his quality. Hey, if you want to get involved in the conversation, shoot us an email at alloutfootball@reachplc.com. Please engage by subscribing to the show wherever you get your podcast. That's the end of part 1 of this week's All Out Soccer, but stick around for part 2 just after this break. And we're back, Joe, with a little bit of U.S. men's national team player roundup. Not as many fireworks this week in England for our American friends as there was a week ago, but still some interesting storylines.
Yeah, it wasn't as prolific as it has been recently. I mean, it seems like every week there's been American players scoring for a variety of different clubs across the EFL and even in the Premier League, but not so much this time. The main standout for me from the Americans in England this week was Aidan Morris, really, really making that midfield position in Middlesbrough his own, and they're flying for it. He played all 90 minutes in a 2-1 win against West Brom, who is an early title contender at this point, but they've taken 16 points from 18 available, 5 wins, 1 draw in 6 games to start the season, and he's been really key in that midfield and flourishing there. Chris Richards, we always talk about him because he's always playing well. He had another busy week. He scored in a League Cup game as they went on to win, and they didn't get a clean sheet in the Premier League this time, but he played in a 2-1 win over West Ham. Elsewhere, it was not as great. Tyler Adams played 90 minutes and 0-0 draw of Bournemouth Newcastle, which was absolutely fine for them. Bournemouth playing really, really well. I think 4th in the Premier League now. They lost a lot of talent over the summer, so the fact that they're still there is mightily impressive. Anthony Robinson wasn't part of the Fulham squad at all. Marcus Silva said after the game that he's still having his minutes managed after knee surgery. He's expected to play tonight, which is Tuesday, as we're recording, in the League Cup for them to get some minutes, which would be important for him. But yeah, in the EFL, Haji Wright, Josh Sargent, Patrick Adjaman, Damian Downs, Charlie Kelman all failed to score. And Kelman was the only player that was actually on the winning side. Charlton won very late, 1-0 against Sheffield United, adding to their woes. But although he didn't score, Frank Lampard had some really interesting comments about Haji Wright. He's basically publicly supported him and said that he hopes he starts in the World Cup, and they seem to love him there. He just said that he's got great character. He has a lot of respect for Pochettino as well, despite the Chelsea and Spurs link. Obviously, Pochettino was at Chelsea, but yeah, he's basically supported him, saying he's a great guy, a great teammate, and he thinks he should be starting in the World Cup, which is going to be a tough one with how many talented players are performing up top. But I think he should definitely be involved.
I completely agree. As of this point, I thought Haji Wright has been arguably the standout U.S. men's national team player in Europe relative to expectations. So it'd be awesome to see him continue to get further look in. Looking at our friends across Europe, we're going to start with the bad and we're going to get better. We're going to start with 2 players who didn't see the field. One is Weston McKennie, who did not play in Juventus' 1-1 draw over Hellas Verona. Obviously, we've mentioned in weeks past, he started at each wingback position in their new 3-5-1-1 formation. Regular starters were back for Juventus, so that means McKennie didn't find a spot in the team or come off the bench in a game that was 1-1 for most of the second half. A little disappointing. We'll see how his role continues to change and develop over the course of the year. Florian Balogun also didn't play for Monaco in a big 5-2 win. The main story in that game was Ansu Fati scored twice. Like, Jesus Christ. But Balogun didn't get to start, didn't find playing time at all. So that's one to monitor as Monaco continues to get healthy. Is there a path to playing time for Florian Balogun? Considering they're playing 2 strikers, I think the answer is yes. Ricardo Pepi did play. He did start full game for PSV in their 2-2 draw against Ajax. Serginho Dest played most of the game and was then substituted. It's great to see Pepi is the locked-on starter. Didn't have his best performance, but these are the games you want him playing in, and eventually, if he's playing these games in this PSV side, the goals will come. Over in Germany, Bayer Leverkusen versus Borussia Mönchengladbach saw a bunch of Americans play in a 1-1 draw. Malik Tillman started deeper in the 3-5-2-1 formation. He started in that central midfield position, not in one of those advanced two spots. He scored the only goal for Leverkusen. Bit of a bouncing ball in the box that he struck well with to find the bottom of the net. Joe Scaley started in the opposite 11. Gio Reyna came off the bench. Americans in Germany, we know a lot of them always find playing time in the Bundesliga, and this is a little exciting meeting of the minds. And then the best news of the weekend, Christian Pulisic in a 3-0 Milan win over Udinese, 2 goals, 1 assist, 1 man of the match award, 1 dominant-looking performance from a player who is now just the best player in Milan. I mean, Rafael Leao hasn't played this season because of some contract issues, transfer issues. I think you can say Christian Pulisic is the best player. And, maybe it's the half Croatian link up with his, blood brother, Luka Modric, but who asked him recently in a video that Milan put on their socials if Pulisic spoke any Croatian, and he said no. But it's just great to watch him in scintillating form. Maybe vindicating that the summer off was the right decision, but that's a conversation for another day. Joe, just a quick question. Who's impressed you, obviously in England, but just looking now abroad, who's impressed you the most this season?
I think Pulisic has been amazing, and if he can continue that form, then, it's all set up for him to have the last laugh in the World Cup if he is looking a bit more fresh and, scores a late goal to dramatically change their fortunes. I think Timothy Weah started well in Marseille. I'm really liking how he's playing. It's a shame to see Weston McKennie not, getting the minutes, but I'm sure he'll get there. In terms of in England, Chris Richards, I'll say it again, really impressed with him. But I think also someone that's gone, maybe not under the radar, I just think he's maybe he's so consistent that he doesn't get appreciated. But Tyler Adams is such a key player. He looks so good for Bournemouth, the way he controls that midfield. And Iraola, the head coach, would not have that much trust in him if he didn't really think he was a top quality player. And I think, he may not be the one that scores the goals. He's a deeper player, doesn't get all the headlines, but I think he's such an important player for a team that is looking to succeed the way that the US is. And of course, they want to get into the knockout stages, but against some of the bigger teams, they will be underdogs. And he's going to play a key role in balancing that midfield in those games. So really liking how he's playing, how Bournemouth are playing. And I actually think the way that Bournemouth are controlling the games the way that they are, he's a key part to that. So fair play to him.
Yeah, they're going to be pushing, in my opinion, for the Champions League spots all season. And to have an American starting in one of those sides is really, really important. I wish Tyler Adams all the best this season. I think he's going to absolutely smash it. Obviously, he's had some seasons in the wilderness recently because of injuries, both with Leeds and Bournemouth, but it's great to see him finally healthy. Fingers crossed he maintains that health all season. Because the U.S. will need him for the World Cup this summer. The biggest World Cup story we thought of this week was about the ticket presale process that attracted 4.5 million fans from across the world. FIFA said 216 nations. Obviously, most of those ticket applications came from those in the United States, where most of the games are being held. The second phase of tickets will open in October. The first round, a little glitchy, a lot of complaining. Sometimes the queues were incredibly long. Good news that there's this much interest in an American World Cup. Bad news that I think there's a general frustration about how this went about. What do you think of all this so far? All so far so good, or like a little too choppy?
It seems like it's been a bit overcomplicated. I know obviously a massive event like that just the whole ticket process is a nightmare. And as we see, online queues getting kicked out, glitches, it happens all the time. And it's not really a thing that's been fixed over recent years, even aside from football, just all events. But the pre-sales and everything else, I'm not sure how I feel about it. From my understanding, most international tournaments, you apply for tickets through a membership through your nation. You have to have your passport uploaded and everything to make sure that you're checked and eligible to do so and it's safe. But having all these pre-sale dates, it seems to be overcomplicating it. And I feel like the most stubborn and the most committed are going to be the ones that succeed. It's also the first World Cup that's going to have dynamic pricing, which is a whole other thing to leap through. I'm not sure how that's going to go. We saw how badly that went in the Club World Cup when Chelsea's semi-final against Fluminense, they were trying to charge $500 a few days before the game, and then an hour before the game you could go on the site and get one for $20. So could buy them, but the interest is great. I think this is something that is better. The fact that it's had such a big process, it has to. The Club World Cup was advertised, but it was kind of a late rush if people wanted to go to the games or not. With this one, it's going to be guaranteed those stadiums are going to be full, and seeing that all across America is going to be a welcome sight. It's something that the federation's wanted for a long, long time. I think it could have been done better, but it's a lot to organise. And yeah, great that the majority is from America anyway. At least they're showing interest.
Yeah, I mean, you want people obviously visiting from other nations, and there is going to be that. There's going to be people from all around the world at these games. Obviously, America is a melting pot, despite what anyone wants to say about this country. And there's fans, and there's people from every nation that will be represented at the World Cup who will find their way to games. And even if you're worried that a fixture is, a little more obscure in nature in terms of the population of a given country that you don't think is very big, either the fans will travel or there is a booming population of the country that you had no idea there was in the United States, and they will be in droves in the stadium. It will not be like some of the scenes from the Gold Cup where there's smatterings of fans, and even though especially away fans are very loud at the Gold Cup, it's just a quantity issue. At the World Cup, I just do not foresee that being that issue at least 95% of the time. Obviously, there will be the odd game or two where attendance is marginal. It's either an inconvenience, probably during a hot day, middle of the day, during a work day, more obscure / just smaller nations playing with a little less fanfare. And there will be a conversation about were tickets too expensive and all this sorts of stuff. But I think generally speaking, there's going to be no issues with attendance. Obviously, ticket prices are frustrating, but I'm hoping, fingers crossed, dynamic pricing makes things palatable and equitable for everyone who wants to get a slice of the World Cup action.
Yeah, and usually I'm quite harsh in saying about the ticket prices and how it works over in America, which I know is controversial based on where I am and the show that we do. But at the same time, it's without being hypocritical, it's a little bit different with the World Cup. I feel like when every nation hosts it, it's kind of their rules, and you accept that going to it as part of the process. So yeah, unlike some games where it's just inflated beyond belief and it causes outrage, I feel like anyone coming over to the World Cup has an idea of what to expect. So it's the way they've done it. And I know obviously as well, applying, you don't know exactly which game you're going to get given a chance to buy tickets for, which on one hand is, annoying if you end up paying a lot of money for a game that you're not particularly, out of a priority list of games you want to see, it's not up there. But that's also a good way to ensure that the stadiums aren't half empty for the games that are seen as less important, which all of them are in the World Cup. So
all of them are, and it's such a novel thing that people will fill in and fill up these stadiums. That just about wraps it up for this week's All Out Soccer. He's been Joseph McBride. I've been Jeremy Goldstein. We hope you can join us again on the next episode of All Out Soccer, or as Thomas Muller would say, Auf Wiedersehen.